Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do another deep dive into the background of a state for 2024. It's a state that's kind of tucked out of the way. It doesn't get that much attention, but that's going to be Maine. So real quick, we've got the left map, and these are the presidential changes between 2012 and 16. And in Maine, like in many other places, you can see a lot of red lines moving toward the right. There are a few blue shifts on here, but most of it went toward the GOP. Now, the right map is a different story. These are the shifts between 2016 and 20. And if you focus on Maine, you're going to see very little red on here. There's a lot of slow-moving blue lines up and toward the left. This time, it's not one of the major battleground states, but there is an outside chance it could become competitive. It has 4 electoral votes, a high voter turnout, and a lot of unaffiliated voters. So there's going to be a lot of data here, but let's dive into Maine, and we're going to start by getting some recent history. So we go back to 2012. In that presidential election, Barack Obama won the state very comfortably. He got it by over 15 points. He cleared 56%. Mitt Romney was at about 41. Now, the thing to remember about Maine is that it does split its electoral votes. Whoever wins the state at large gets 2 electoral votes, 1 for each U.S. senator, and Maine also has 2 congressional districts, and the winner of those is allocated an additional electoral vote, so you could get up to 4. So that's going to make this a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to try to still move through this and cover all the details. Now, if you look at this county map on the right, let's pull it up and take a closer look. Now, there's 16 counties in Maine, and all of them except 1 are blue. It's not really a surprise considering Obama won it so easily. But let's go over some of these counties. Now, we can't go over all of them, but the most populous one here is Cumberland County that has the city of Portland. It's also the bluest county and has more than 1/5 of the state population. And that was the only county back then that supported Obama with more than 60% of the vote. The second most populous county is to the southwest. That's York County. The reddest county that has a decent chunk of population is going to be this county here. That's Penobscot. And the state capital of Augusta is here in Kennebec County. Now, as I said, Maine splits their electoral votes. So because of that, the congressional districts are important. So here's a map of those 2 districts. Much of the population lives in the southwestern part of the state in the 1st district. That is the much bluer district. So there's a decent northern-southern political divide here. You could also look at it in terms of a more urban and rural divide. So with some of these locations out of the way, let's jump ahead 4 years and see what happened in 2016. There, Hillary Clinton won the state, but the margins were very different. She was under 48% of the vote. That was more than 8 points worse than Obama did. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was at about 45. He improved on Romney's total by 4 points. That's about a 12-point rightward shift. That's significant. It was also during this election that in that 2nd congressional district, he won that by double digits and was able to claim 1 electoral vote from the state. Now, as I said, there are a lot of unaffiliated voters in Maine, and in this election, there was a strong third-party presence led by Gary Johnson, who cleared 5% of the vote. If we look at the county map, this time we see a lot more red counties in the northern part of the state or in that 2nd congressional district. If we take a look at the bluest one of Cumberland, Hillary was right at 60%, Trump at about 33.5%. Next door in York County, Hillary at 49, Trump 44. Less than a 5% win for Hillary. The most populous county that Trump was able to flip was Penobscot. There he was under 52%, while Hillary was under 41. And in Kennebec County, Trump winning that county by 3.5 points. So Trump unexpectedly with a lot of success in the state this time. Some of that is going to be driven by Trump and Hillary themselves, but the third-party vote is again going to be a significant factor. It's not only Gary Johnson, but he got 5% in the state, but Franklin was Johnson's best county where he was at 6.7. Now, I prefer to use the county map, but if you want a more detailed look, you could take a look at each individual municipality, and this really shows you the breakdown again in that 1st congressional district in the southern part of the state. That's where you're going to see a ton of blue, and the northern part of the state has most of the red. Now let's jump ahead 4 more years to the last election in 2020. This time Biden wins the state with 53% of the vote. That's a lot more than Hillary did, but still less than Obama in 2012. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did slightly worse. He was down to 44%. Something to take note of this time is there's much less of a third-party presence. There's still a little bit. Joe Jorgensen and Howie Hawkins each pulled in at least 1%. Also in this election, Trump was able to claim another electoral vote by winning the 2nd congressional district. Now, we'll come back to some of the county shifts in just a minute, but if you scroll down and take a look at all the individual towns and sort by the total number of votes cast, there you can see in all the places that have heavy population, they all voted for Biden, and almost all of them were by double digits. You don't see any that voted for Trump until you get down into the more medium-sized towns. Then you see Trump winning by massive margins of 30, 40, or more points. So to get a closer look at some of these county shifts, let's get back on Ballotpedia. So the shading this time is not the margins. This this is just how often they voted for the Democrat or the Republican in the last 3 elections. So let's see what some of the trends are. If you look at Cumberland County, again that has most of the population. But there, last time Biden did better than Hillary, he even did better than Obama did back in 2012. Meanwhile, Trump went in the opposite direction. He did worse than Romney did. In York County, the margins for both candidates fell between what they were in 2012 and 16. There's only one county on here that's listed as a battleground, and that's Kennebec. Obama won that by over 13 points back in 12, but that's the county Trump was able to flip in 16. He won it by 3.5. In the last election, though, it was very narrow, but it went to Biden by less than 0.5 point. And if you want to see some of the more massive shifts, the ones we're kind of used to seeing in places like the Rust Belt, then we can start in Penobscot County. That went for Obama by 3 points. Then in 16, Trump won it by a massive 11. In 20, the margin narrowed a little bit, but Trump still won it by 8. The reddest county in the state is next door in Piscataquis. It's also the least populated county in the state, but take a look at these shifts. That was the only red county back in 12 for Romney. He won it by 4. But then it went completely off a cliff. In 16, Trump won it by 25 points. Then last time, Trump still improved. He won it by more than 26. So these red counties in the northern part of the state, these have become much more Trump-friendly. And you could also take a look at the shifts in these other counties. Some of them are quite dramatic. Generally, the red counties got significantly redder since the days of Obama, while the blue counties got bluer. And that has given the state some renewed attention from presidential candidates. Trump has at least been able to claim one electoral vote over the past 2 elections. If you want yet another way to look at some of these shifts, we've already glanced at the municipality map and looked at the individual precincts, but if we get on this map here, this will start out showing you the same thing. You could hover over any precinct to take a look at the results. But the added benefit of this map lets you click here and take a look at the shifts between 16 and 20. So if you click on this, you're going to see a little bit of red, but a lot more blue on this map. There is some data missing from some places, but ultimately in the higher populated parts of the state, you see most of those had a decent shift toward Biden. You will find some that shifted toward Trump. Those are just places that have less population. Now, one other map we can take a look at for some shifts is this one here. This has the red and blue arrows depending on the shift between 16 and 20. The bigger the arrow, the bigger the shift. And as you can see, there's only 4 of the 16 counties that shifted toward Trump. And you could also click on any one of these arrows to get more of a breakdown. So if you look at the only potential swing county of Kennebec, you can see that both Biden and Trump gained raw votes, but Biden gained almost twice the amount. He was at 5,600 while Trump was over 3,000. So where did most of that vote come from? Well, a lot of that is going to be from the third parties. This time, the raw third party percent went down 4.8 all the way down to 3.1. So throughout all the vote changes in this county, Biden went up 4.3% while Trump also increased, but only by 0.5 point. So the third party is not everything, but considering 2020 had a much smaller third party presence, Biden seemed to be the bigger beneficiary. Now, another thing we could take a look at is going to be the voter turnout. Now, as I said, Maine already does have very high turnout, but if you get on this map, this will show you the changes between 16 and 20. If you go into Maine, every county on here saw an increase, and most of those were by about 8 to 10%. So Maine is a divided state, politically but also demographically. Here's the exit polling from 2020 specific to Maine. This will show you where both Trump and Biden did their strongest and weakest. One of the key demographic divides is going to be education. If you get on this map here, this will show you the educational attainment across each county. The darker counties have more people with a bachelor's degree or higher. Now, the nationwide average is somewhere around the mid-30s, but if you look at this map, the counties in the southern part of the state in that 1st congressional district, those are clearly much darker, and most of those are at least close to the national average. But Cumberland County is significantly higher educated. Now, the northern counties in that 2nd congressional district, there you can see the shading drops off. Most of those are only in the mid-20s or lower. So considering Donald Trump has done much better with voters without a college degree, it looks like his brand could easily resonate again in that part of the state. Now, there's a lot more we could cover about Maine, but one other thing we've got to mention is ranked choice voting. Now, if you're not familiar with ranked choice voting, you could easily do a search on it. I've also done videos myself on it, but essentially on the general election ballot, voters will pick their first choice, second choice, etc. If no candidate gets a majority of support in the first round, then the lowest candidate is dropped. Then those votes are reallocated into the remaining candidates until somebody gets a majority of support. Now, this has been going on for a few elections now. It's not for every single office, but it is for president and for Congress. And if we go back to 2018, that was a blue wave election. And in that 2nd congressional district, that's the redder, more Trump-friendly district, in the first round, Bruce Poliquin was the incumbent Republican, and he was in the lead with 46.3%. Jared Golden was in in second with 45.6. That wasn't enough for a majority, so once the two independent candidates were eliminated and their vote was reallocated, then the result flipped. Jared Golden ended up being the winner with 50.5 to Bruce Poliquin's 49.5. So you get to see ranked choice voting in action. Before, Poliquin would have been the winner with a plurality, but even though this district is very Trump-friendly, Bruce Poliquin is the wrong kind of Republican. Jared Golden is a more moderate type of blue dog Democrat, and he is currently in office. So that district is competitive, but theoretically something similar could happen for president as well. The same thing could also happen for Biden in the 1st district. Now the last thing we're going to do is take a look at the accuracy of the polling back in 2020. So again, the state as a whole, at large, Biden won it by 9 points. The aggregate polling had Biden up by about 12, so that's somewhere around a 3-point overestimation of support for Biden. But remember, if you can win one of these congressional districts, you will get one electoral vote. So if we look at the 1st district, that is much more friendly to Biden. Last time he won that by 23 points. It looks like this time the polling averages were spot on. It looks like off by less than 1%, so those are some great polls in the aggregate. Now in the 2nd congressional district, that's much redder. Trump won that by almost 7.5 points. Here the polling averages were way off. They had this at about an even split, so it looks like about a 7 to 8 point underestimation of support for Trump. We've seen that before in a lot of places, especially in the Rust Belt. Usually in more working class counties, there's just some sort of an underestimation, maybe hidden Trump vote that's not accounted for in the polling. This right here is a great example of that. So what is the conclusion for Maine? Well, this is a fascinating state. There's a lot going on here in Maine with high turnout, independent voters, ranked choice voting, plus a split electoral vote. It's undergone some political changes since the days of Obama easily winning it by double digits. Trump actually made it competitive just 4 years later, but last time with less third-party vote, it did move toward the Democrats. But there's a clear political, geographic, and demographic divide in the state. Trump's style and messaging has been able to resonate with those voters, and he's been able to capture one more electoral vote. However, the state as a whole does lean more Democratic. They reelected their Democratic governor in 2022. Democrats have the advantage in the state legislature. They have both U.S. House seats, and in the U.S. Senate, they have an independent senator who caucuses with the Democrats. The one bright spot for the Republicans is the other U.S. Senate seat, Susan Collins. She's won many terms as a Republican. She's not really friendly with the Trump base. She's considered more moderate. So overall, I would expect the state to be won by Biden this time. However, the couple of polls we've seen out of Maine, they have shown it to be competitive, even Trump with a lead at large. I would guess a lot of independents or Democrats are just disaffected and not enthusiastic for Biden at the current moment. Most of them are probably going to come back and vote for Biden in the end, but you really can never be too sure what's going to happen. The polling overall last time did clearly underestimate Trump, and maybe there's just an unexpected shift that people don't see coming and Maine becomes a new battleground state. I think that's less likely until I see what happens. So right now it looks like Trump is at least going to snag one electoral vote from this state. So that's an overview of the recent political history for Maine. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this state? Is this an under the radar state that has something brewing? How blue of a state do you really think it is? How do you think the demographic trends factor in? Do you like this state? Do you not like it? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.